Make sure it is the bus we're assigned. Of course, today, not a big deal. It's the only bus out here. But we're on bus 74. Then I look, does the bus sit square to the ground or does it lean to one side?
Okay.
If it leans, it could indicate a flat tire or a suspension problem. It looks like it's sitting pretty square to the ground now. I look under the bus to see if there's any leaks from any of the engine fluids. Oil, transmission fluid, power steering fluid, anything. If it's leaking, that could be a problem. Then I start looking at the bus itself. I tend to start at the top. At the very top, I got 3 clearance lights. They're amber in color. They're not cracked, broken, or missing.
Yeah.
Below that is the school bus sign, which clearly identifies this as a school bus. That's a legal requirement. To the left or right of that are my passenger warning lights, amber lights and red lights.
The signal light and the stop.
Yeah.
So again, there are no cracks that I can see. They're not broken, not missing.
And it's clear, transparent.
Clear, and we will make sure they actually work once we get inside. Then the windshield. I see no cracks, no breaks, no unauthorized stickers, no damage that would impair my vision. The windshield wipers. The rubber should not be cracked, broken, or coming apart, and have good contact with the windshield. Both of them appear to be in acceptable condition. The mirrors. Side mirrors are not cracked or broken. The mounting is secure. Front corner mirrors the same. They're secure. They're not cracked or broken.
This is a student mirror, right?
If a student mirror or a crossover mirror is called a couple of things.
Crossover mirror. Student mirror.
This mirror, again, no cracks or breaks. It's all secure.
No crack and breaks.
The lighting, headlights, we look to make sure there's no cracks or breaks. The bulbs look like they're intact. The lens itself is clear. No moisture buildup, no scratches or breaks. The reflector on the side is intact. Both sides intact. And again, once we're inside, we'll make sure the lights actually work. The safety arm.
Safety arm.
What's the purpose of that, sir?
When you make a passenger stop, this will come out to make sure that when kids, if they come from the left side of the road, they walk far enough in front of the bus that you don't lose vision of them.
Okay.
It makes them walk out here so you can see them rather than walk up here.
Okay.
So you make sure it's intact, not broken. You should feel tension. It wants to pull back. And again, we'll make sure it works once we get inside. You got fender lights.
Fender lights.
These have a turn signal as well as just a running light. So make sure it's intact, not cracked, broken, or missing.
So it's just an auxiliary light, additional light. Okay.
It just isn't what I call kind of a running light or a marker light. It just indicates the presence and helps the size of the bus, but there is also a signal. If the turn signals are on, it will be on as well.
Oh, okay.
Now we have to go under the hood. Which this week we go under the hood. Once you are licensed, the bus garage takes over that. So you don't have to do this on a regular basis, but for the test, federal requirement says you have to know how to do this. And if you were driving for anyone other than a school system, you probably have to do it anyway.
Oh, okay. So to unlock and pull.
Passenger side.
We have 8 specific things we look for in the engine compartment. They're sheets I gave you, have those identified. Coolant. We want to make sure that the coolant reservoir is in place, it's properly mounted. We would not want to see any kind of cracks or leaks. The cap should be on tight.
Okay.
If it was warm, you don't open this.
Yeah.
The hoses should have no cracks or leaks.
No cracks or leaks.
And the coolant level needs to be above the low mark.
Above the low mark.
Alternator. Alternator is what charges our battery system. It needs to be securely attached. No obvious damage or cracks to it. If you can see the wires on the back, they should be securely attached with no sign of corrosion or arcing or any damage there.
Mm.
It's run by a fan belt, so you want to make sure the fan belt is not cracked or frayed. And if you push or pull it, it should not move more than about 3/4 of an inch.
Mm.
More than that, it would be too loose. It might not operate properly.
It's called the fender belt, sir.
It's the fan belt.
Fan belt.
And if the fan belt is too loose, it would not operate properly. That's why we want to check.
Fan belt.
Shouldn't move more than 3/4 of an inch when you push or pull it.
Mm.
The water pump is hard to see, but it's normally behind the fan on the front of the engine block.
Mm.
This,
Can you see?
the shaft of the fan normally goes right into the water pump. But
How do you see it, sir?
you don't really get a good view of it itself, but you look in the general area up here, and you look to see, are there any kind of leaks? Of course, if it is leaking, it should be leaking on the ground as well.
Yeah.
But it's behind all this area here on the front of the engine, and the water pump should not have any leaks. Once the engine is running, if it's going out or with a problem, it will normally squeak very loudly.
Mm.
So coolant, alternator, and a water pump are the three things we see on this side.
Okay.
Alternator.
Coolant, alternator, and
Water pump.
water pump.
Now, I look at the windshield washer fluid there and make sure we have it. It's not one of those 8.
Oh.
Although we are later supposed to make sure it works, we can wash the windshield, so I look while I'm over here.
That's the this one, sir. Air inlet. That's what.
We're not required to specifically
Okay.
identify that.
Okay.
Um,
In the passenger side, you need to see the
That's-
Coolant,
the
alternator,
the
and
water pump.
water pump.
Those are the 3 specific
But you
items on
cannot
this
see.
side.
Okay.
and the fan belt.
And of course, if you're looking at anything that contains a liquid, any of the hoses that it goes through would have to be checked as well.
Yeah, no
In
leaks
connection with
and brakes.
it. And if the item is operated by a fan belt, you check the belt to make sure it is not cracked, frayed, or loose.
Mm.
Okay. So then we'll move to the other side.
Okay.
I said there were 8 items.
Yeah.
We got 3 on this side, so we'll
And then
look for
5.
5 on the other side.
Okay.
Power steering.
Power
fluid.
steering fluid.
Okay.
Again, make sure the reservoir is securely attached. Does not show signs of leaking.
No leaking.
The hoses should not have
Not
any cracks, breaks, or
No.
leaks in those.
Okay.
The fluid level
Above.
above the minimum.
Yeah.
That fluid goes into the steering gearbox.
Steering
The
gearbox.
steering gearbox here should be attached securely to the frame. All these bolts here are good. No cracks or damage in it. You don't want any leaks here.
Yeah.
So even at these joints, no cracks or leaks.
No work.
The steering gearbox is attached to the steering linkage.
Steering.
Upper side goes through this rod all the way to the steering wheel.
Oh, okay.
If I turn this, I can look in there and see the steering wheel moving.
Oh, yeah.
Want to make sure this joint does not have any excessive wear, so that the steering wheel has to move too much before it starts to turn the wheel.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
The lower linkage comes from the steer box down here and goes over to the wheel. So you want to make sure that these joints, again, do not have any excessive wear or motion. You don't want to see any shiny metal.
Mm.
They should be properly lubricated. All these nuts and pins in place. If any of these joints here are worn out, it could give extra movement to the steering wheel. And if the steering wheel moves more than 2 inches before it starts to turn this tire, that's too much.
Oh, okay.
We call that play.
Yeah.
Too much play
Wiggle.
can be dangerous.
We call that in the Philippines wiggle.
Well, and it is a kind of wiggle. So, but the standard is 2 inches before it starts moving. This is too much.
Mm. You will have difficulty in your control, steering control.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the steering. I'll check the oil. You happen to bring a rag.
Oh.
With oil, you check the dipstick. Of course, to check the dipstick, you wipe it clean, especially if it's warm. But you want to wipe it clean. As we can see down there, we see the lines we're looking
This is
for.
the full
We're looking for it to be in this area, you know, between the add and the full mark.
Mm.
Oh, it's max.
So we are full,
Mm.
and we look at the oil itself. Do not see any discoloration, especially any milky color, which could indicate water in the oil. And do not see any metal shavings in it.
Mm.
Okay, so how many items have we identified?
This one, we call this a power steering fluid. This is called the steering box.
Mm-hmm.
And we should see it should not be cracked. This is the, what we call this?
Linkage.
The linkage.
Correct. Link is upper and
Upper
lower.
and
Upper
lower.
and lower.
Oh, okay. The upper is for the steering wheel.
The upper goes to the
And then
steering
the
wheel,
lower
goes over to the
is-
wheel itself.
Yeah.
For the wheel.
And the
Okay.
last one is the checking of the fluid.
Checking
oil.
of the oil.
fluid. Checking the oil.
So we have the coolant,
Coolant,
alternator, and the water pump on that side.
Water pump,
Power steering fluid,
power
the
steering,
power steering gearbox,
gearbox,
the steering linkage,
linkage.
and the oil that we've talked about here.
Okay.
That's 7 items.
Okay. What is the other one?
That's,
That's
I save it for last because it can be the one hardest to locate, depending on the one bust or not. And that is the air pump
Oh,
or
air
air
pump.
compressor.
Mm.
Air compressor is underneath.
No, it's in the engine compartment.
Mm.
But air compressors can vary depending on their size and their location. There are 2 types of air compressors. Called belt driven, which means they run with a fan belt,
Okay.
or gear driven, which means they're attached directly to the side of the engine. On your skill test, you're supposed to identify, is it a belt or a gear driven air compressor?
Okay.
So first thing I always recommend doing is you look at, do you see anything that does in fact have a fan belt on it that you think is the air compressor?
Mm.
Well, you know all the fan belts are going to be up the front.
Yeah.
So do you see anything with a fan belt that you think may be an air compressor?
This is the air compressor.
That is the air conditioner.
Air conditioner. Oh.
Now I will tell you, generally speaking, air compressors are going to be on this side, almost always on this side.
Mm.
And if you have a belt-driven air compressor, it's going to be hard to miss. It's going to be very large right in this area.
Yeah. It means this is a gear.
So this would be, if you do not have a belt-driven, that would mean you'd have a gear-driven compressor.
Oh, okay.
This one does have a gear-driven compressor.
You.
Now,
Gear-driven.
gear-driven, as I said, they're smaller because they're mounted straight to the engine.
Yeah.
They often use the oil from the engine itself, so they don't have to have the big reservoir and that kind of stuff. On this bus, air compressor is right back in here. Matter of fact, my stick is on it right there.
Okay.
Let's see where the end of the stick is in there.
Oh, okay. Wait. Zoom in. Oh, okay.
It's kind of hidden back in there, but
Yeah.
that black pipe, that little curvy black pipe there,
This is it.
it comes up and then drops down, it goes into it.
This is it.
Sure.
Okay. This one.
See that black line right beside the stick there where it's mounted to it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That line is actually what takes the air back to your storage tanks.
Okay. This one is.
So that, if you can find that line on this model bus, it'll go right into the air compressor.
Mm,
this is the
okay.
air compressor tube.
Now that's kind of one of the telltale. You see this kind of curved pipe.
Mm,
It'll go into the air compressor on this model bus.
The gear tree.
Most of our buses are this model.
oh, okay.
So
That's
that will
good.
tell you just almost, well, I would say 94% of our buses are this type.
Oh, that's good.
So you could always find it that way.
Mm,
But it's a gear-driven air compressor, and when you find the air compressor, you want to make sure you don't see any damage,
over here,
no obvious
and
leaks,
then
or concerns to
connected.
it.
Okay.
And then just as an overall look, all the other hoses and wires and things you see, you don't want to see anything that looks like it could be damaged. It could
Yeah.
cause problems later.
No leakings, no damage.
So the engine compartment itself would have those 8 components and their attached hoses and belts and stuff. Any questions so far?
None so.
Why is it so very clean?
Is it maintained?
2 reasons. One, this is the newest bus we have in our
Oh, okay.
fleet. That
That's why.
helps.
Wow.
And secondly, we will clean those on occasion. We don't want a lot of oily residue or dust buildup,
Okay.
because when you have that kind of buildup,
It's very,
you also trap heat,
yeah.
and enough heat buildup can lead to fire.
Oh, yeah.
So every once in a while, we will actually just steam clean the entire engine and make sure we don't have that. But this bus does not have a lot of miles on it yet.
Wow.
This is the last bus we got.
Wow.
The last bus?
The last one we got delivered to us. Right
Oh,
here. So
okay.
it is the newest one we have in our fleet,
Mm.
at least until those that show up this year. When it showed up, we were ordering 5 buses. They delivered 4 in August.
Mm.
Sounds good.
This bus was delayed. It didn't show up until December.
Mm.
So for the first 6 weeks, I drove the train in. It was nice.
Yeah.
So that's the engine compartment. Even the older buses that you look at, it's going to be fairly clean. They may have a little bit more buildup, but it's going to be pretty clean, because we don't want to let them get too bad.
Yeah.
Now, with the hood open, we now have a better view of our suspension and our brake system.
Mm.
Okay.
The suspension system is what allows you to ride over rough roads and it won't jar you too much. You'll always have at least 4 parts to the suspension, sometimes 5. You'll always have the springs, these leaf style springs. You want to make sure they do not have any cracks or breaks. They're lined up, cannot have any missing.
Mm.
So we got to have both of them at all times.
Okay.
The U-bolts
Yeah, both.
actually attach the springs to the axle. They're U-shaped, upside down to attach there. The nuts are on the bottom side.
Should be intact.
They should not have any cracks or breaks and should be tight. You should not see any slippage or movement there.
Mm.
The mounts, where the spring actually attaches to the frame, got a mount here and another one back there under the edge of the fender. You want to make sure those mounts do not have any cracks or breaks, no loose or missing bolts.
Mm. Mount, sir? Mount?
Mount.
Mount?
The mount attaches the spring to the frame, so they're called the spring mount.
Oh, okay.
And then the shock absorber.
Shock absorber.
The shock absorber has one end mounted to the frame, the other end mounted to the spring. No damage, no leaks. So those 4 parts you should always have. On the rear axle, we're also going to have an air bag, which will be
Airbag.
beside the shock absorber.
The shock.
But-
the spring.
But that is the suspension system.
Mm.
Then we'll look at the brake system. Most of our buses have the S-cam drum style brakes.
Mm.
This is a newer bus, so this does not have that kind of brakes. This has the disc style. So you'll have the hose. The air hose comes from the frame. Make sure it does not have any cracks or breaks. It's securely attached. No concerns for a leak. The brake chamber, just metal canister securely attached here.
Mm.
No obvious damage or,
The brake
again, no concern for a leak. Disc brakes do not have a slack adjuster
Mm.
like S-cam, so it's not in there to check. And then on the inside of the tire, you can either look on the inside of the tire here, I might look through the wheel here. You see the disc or rotor.
Mm. Yeah.
It should not have any grooves, shouldn't be worn too thin. And if you can see the brake pads, which are inside here, it rubs against this disc. They should not be worn thin. You do not want them to have cracks and no liquid. They cannot be wet with water, oil, grease, or anything.
Mm.
We don't have the S-cam here, right?
This does not have the S-cam. If you do have the slack adjuster for the S-cam brakes, you would have a brake drum here, not the rotor, the disc.
Okay.
So it's the different type of brakes. Where the newer buses will come with disc brakes. We've had them on cars for years. We're starting to put them on buses now.
Mm.
Where's the adjusters, sir?
You do-
Adjusters and the push rod?
You do not have the adjuster, the slack adjuster.
Oh, okay.
It only comes with the S-cam style brakes.
We just only have the chamber, the hose.
The hose, the chamber,
And
and
the
then your
brake drum.
disc and rotor.
The disc rotor.
The disc, which you can see here or through the hole here.
Yeah.
That's the disc or rotor there, and then the brake pads or linings
pads.
inside this
Mm.
would be what you would check for the brakes. And again, I'm not asking you to be a mechanic, so we're just doing what we are able to
We're just
see.
checking.
How do we see the brake pad, sir? If it's covered.
You might be able to come in and see it at an angle here. Look up under inside this caliper is where the pad is. Yes, it is hard to see unless you actually get under the bus or take the wheel off. We don't require that for any obvious reasons.
Okay.
But can we touch
You
it?
just have to be aware that it's in there. Now, if you maybe reach in and if you get back under the edge of this caliper, because the pad is inside, and it presses against that rotor when you press the brakes. It presses against this part. So it's going to be, inside there. This squeezes in when you apply the brakes. And we're not going to require you to go beyond an observational inspection.
Okay.
So it's there.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be worn thin, should not have cracks, and should not have any grease or oil on it.
Mm.
But we're not going to ask you to actually get down and see it if it's hard to see.
But is
If you're the
the
driver, not the mechanic.
but
Yeah,
is
that's
the mechanic regularly inspecting the buses, sir?
He will inspect it. If you report a problem, he comes out and checks it.
Mm.
But on a regular basis, every bus is thoroughly inspected at least once a month.
Once a month, okay.
And then they go through a yearly inspection, which is very, very detailed.
Mm.
I think this is good.
So we got the brake system there,
Okay.
the hose, the brake chamber, the rotor, and the pads on this bus. Then we would go to the tires.
Yes, the TOP.
Every tire we check those three characteristics. TOP, or the top of the tire. T is for the tread depth. That's the depth of these grooves. Front tires must be a minimum of 4/32 of an inch.
Question, sir. How do we measure if it's that kind of?
Good question. If you have a tread depth gauge, obviously you could use that. I don't even carry one.
Oh.
But we have a presumptive gauge, one that will at least get you close. Get my hand out of my pocket. If you have a copper penny,
Okay.
find Lincoln's head on it. Hold it so Lincoln's head is upright.
Yeah.
You insert that in the groove and to see how much of Lincoln is covered up. Right? So see where Lincoln's head is covered. If we got that much groove, if the groove will cover up to where his ear is, then you got enough on the front tires.
Mm.
If it's about half of that, right along around the top of his head,
You need to
that'll be for the back.
Mm.
But that's not absolutely accurate, but it's going to be a close estimate
Okay.
if it comes up to where Lincoln's ear is.
Okay.
4/32 inch on the front. You have to have 2/32 of tread on the rear. But you want to make sure those treads are deep enough because that helps to maintain traction, especially on wet pavement. Then you look for the overall appearance.
Yeah.
We're looking for any uneven wear or damage to the tire.
Abrasion.
You want no cuts, no bubbles, abrasions of any kind, no separation of rubber here, and no uneven wear, no flat spotting, no damage you can see to the tire.
Yeah.
And the P is the pressure. Air pressure.
Air pressure.
You'll check that at the valve stem with an air pressure gauge.
Yes.
Do we have a gauge in the bus?
No,
So we have to carry ours.
no. You look remember I said driver is observational. You look, if it looks like it might not have enough air, or if you feel it look a little spongy or wanting to pull, have the mechanic check it.
Okay.
The standard is it must be checked with an air pressure gauge.
Yeah.
And it's at the valve stand, which should be straight, no cracks, breaks, and should have a cap on it. These tires we run at 100 psi. They are still considered usable down to about 80. You don't want to blow that, but preferably at 100. We're not going to require you to carry a gauge as long as you know to check the air pressure. You'd have to use an air pressure gauge. Okay. The rim, make sure it has no cracks or breaks, no obvious damage to it, and you cannot have a rim that has been cracked that somebody tried to weld it back or repair it. If a rim gets cracked, you don't repair it, you replace it. All the lug nuts must be in place with no cracks, no breaks. You don't want any rust trails like it had water behind it. If they're tight, water can't get in there. You don't want any cracks coming out of it like the holes have been worn out or have been running loose. So no obvious damage on the lug nuts. The hub oil seal.
Hub oil seal.
In the middle, it has oil in there on the bearing, so you don't want any of that oil leaking out.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the front tire.
Okay.
With it so far?
Yeah.
Okay. If we got the engine covered, the suspension, brakes, and tires, the other side will be checked the same way.
Okay.
You know, I can tell you I checked it when we were over there. I just didn't verbally tell you. But both sides would have to be checked normally. But once the inspection here is good, then we can close the hood and we'll move on down the side of the bus.
Just push it and then you lock.
Now, until we got this model bus, when you close it, it would fall down, almost slam. This model, they put a little shock absorber in there so it doesn't slam down. But when you close it, just make sure you catch this under there. Make sure it's tight, and it doesn't come around, but make sure it's latched tightly. If you open the hood and fail to latch this when you close it, and you start to drive, the first time you hit the brakes, you'll stop, but it won't. It'll fly open. Then you got to get out and close it while everybody's looking at you.
Oh my.
So make sure it's latched when you drive. Now, as we go down the side of the bus, we're looking for any damage. We don't want any windows to have any cracks or breaks. No unauthorized stickers that would impair any vision. Reflective stripe down the side should be intact. Clearance lights on the side.
Clearance light.
Amber in the middle, and red at the back. Again, we want to make sure they're not cracked, broken, missing, and they should be the right color. The stop sign should clearly say stop. The lights, top and bottom, should be intact, not cracked or broken. The inside, well, that's the same thing. Clearly say stop. The light should not have any cracks or breaks. The air bellow here should not have any kind of cracks or breaks. We don't want it leaking air when we're trying to activate this. Because if this leaks air, once it comes out, then it starts to leak back like this, and it doesn't tell the traffic to stop. So we want that to be intact. If you're going to check the inside, make sure you pull the sign, not the bracket. We don't want the bracket pulled off the side of the bus. Turn signal, as well as emergency flashers, securely attached, no cracks or breaks in it. These doors should be securely closed. You don't have to open them. There's really no user serviceable other thing. Batteries in there. These are electrical connections here. Just make sure the doors are closed.
Okay.
Make sure the number is also on the side. It identifies the bus. Make sure it's identified that it is with North Carolina Schools in the county you're with. Side reflectors. We had the one built in the headlight assembly on the front corner. In the middle we got an amber one here, and then on the back we will have a red one. Make sure they're intact, not cracked, broken, or missing. Emergency exits should be labeled and have reflective tape around it so that any rescuer would know where to come to the bus to try to get answers if need be. Under the middle of the bus, 3 things we check under the middle. You either have to get down and look under the fender here, or you might be able to look through here. But down the middle of the bus, we'll have the drive shaft. It goes from the transmission all the way to the rear axle. It's usually black, like a pipe, in several sections, and it has some safety loops around it to, if it should break apart, there's safety loops to hold it.
Can you see?
The drive shaft.
If you get down, you can see it through there.
Oh, I
See
see
that
it.
little U-shaped loop under
Oh,
it?
Yeah.
okay.
The
That's a
drive
drive
shaft
shaft.
is in the middle of that,
Okay.
and it goes from the transmission all the way to the rear axle.
Okay.
Mm.
That must be intact. Where the connections are made to it, they're good. They're not worn out. There's
Drive
safety
shaft?
loops, so they're just in case it breaks loose, it doesn't hit the ground when you're moving.
Mm.
The frame, big metal frame, you have a big metal rail on this side and one on the other side. It lays flat from bumper to bumper, these 2 long metal rails, and then of course across it looks like a great big ladder that's laying on its side. The
Mm.
entire bus is attached to that frame. So you want to inspect the frame to make sure it's not cracked or warped or bent.
Okay.
Any damage to
Frame.
that frame could mean the entire vehicle is no longer drivable.
Mm.
And then the exhaust system, which goes from the engine all the way to the rear bumper. It's normally on the other side of the bus. See it easier on the other side, but it's normally a silver or a gray pipe with the mufflers,
Mm.
and it comes back at the rear axle. It all crosses over to this side. You can see a little bit of it right here. This is part of the exhaust pipe right there.
Mm. Okay.
It's supposed to go all the way to the rear bumper. You want to make sure it doesn't have any kind of cracks
Exhaust.
or leaks under the bus. If it leaks under the bus, then those fumes would be going inside the bus,
Mm.
and they are poisonous.
Oh.
So you don't want to put those in there where the kids are.
Mm.
So frame, exhaust, and the drive shaft under the middle of the bus.
Frame exhaust.
At the rear axle, I know it's hard to see, but you still have suspension, and you got brakes, which are behind the tire. Still has to be inspected. Now the suspension, see right here, you can see the front mount.
Yeah, that's the front one.
Just like on the front. Look at that mount, make sure it has no cracks or breaks, no loose or missing bolts. You can see the springs, at least part of them
The
there.
lead spring, the U-bolt.
And the springs should not have any cracks or breaks. Be lined and none missing. The U-bolts, if you got up here, got down and looked kind of diagonally across to the other side, you can see where the U-bolts
Yeah.
are under the axle. You can see the nuts hanging down.
Mm.
Make sure they're tight.
Is this the same in the front, right?
It's the same on the front. The shock absorber is actually going to be right through here.
Okay.
It's
It's going to be
hidden.
hard to see. And unless you get under the bus, we don't make anybody get under the bus, okay? But you know it's in there, you've got to identify it.
Yeah.
And then if you look over the tire, right back in there, there's a big black rubber airbag.
Mm.
It's actually behind the shock absorber on this bus. But that airbag is part of the suspension. You check it for leaks, make sure it's securely mounted, no obviously concerns about it not working there. So the suspension on the rear will have your springs, U-bolts, mounts,
Lead spring,
shock absorber, plus the airbag.
airbag and air mount.
The brakes, again, if you look diagonally here toward the other side, you can see the brake chamber. The brake chamber on the rear is going to be bigger than the one on the front because it has the spring brakes, which is your parking brake.
Oh, okay.
The brake chamber must be free of any cracks or breaks, securely attached. It will have 2 hoses going into it on the back. You have your service brake hose for the regular brakes, and then the second hose for your parking brake. So you have to check both hoses.
Brakes, service and parking.
You still got your rotors or your disc and the brake shoes. If you look through, rotor should be through here. But
Oh yeah.
again, you're making sure the rotor does not have any damage, not worn thin. The brake pads should be not worn thin, no cracks, no liquid grease or oil on it.
But we cannot see that, sir, right?
It's hard to see, but it's in there.
Yeah.
And on the test, as long as you acknowledge it's
Yeah.
in there, you know about where it is, you can tell me and tell me what you're looking for, we can still get credit for it.
Okay.
Mm.
We're not
Then
trying to make it hard on you if we don't have to.
Then how can we determine if it is good or not? If we cannot see that.
When we get into the brake testing,
Okay.
we'll see that.
Mm.
So suspension and the brakes, very similar to the front.
Mm-hmm.
We will allow you on the test, if you do the front, we can see it better.
Yeah.
If you identify those parts on the front, when you come back here, you can refer to what you've already demonstrated.
Yeah.
So you could actually come back here and like the rear suspension, I would inspect just like I did
Yeah.
on the front, but I would include the airbag.
Mm.
It's extra back here, and then you talk about the airbag. It's right back through there.
Yeah.
But
You
we
could
can
say
see the airbag.
the rear brakes, I would inspect just like I did on the front, but it has a additional hose I would have to check
Mm.
for cracks or breaks or leaks.
The airbag
And we'll give you credit for
is
that.
that look like a cylinder?
Yes, that is the
Okay.
airbag. So anything
have-
you demonstrate already, a similar part, you can refer back to what you already shown.
You
Mm.
have an airbag there? on
No,
the
there's
front?
no airbag on the front.
Okay.
It's an additional thing on the suspension back here.
Okay.
So the suspension back here is just like the front, but we add the airbag. The brakes back here are just like the front, but we add that extra hose for the parking brake. Okay?
Yeah.
On the tires,
232.
we can check the tires just like we do on the front.
Mm.
TOP, but the tread depth on the rear tires is only 2/32 of an inch, not 4.
Mm.
232, 432.
You still check for overall damage,
No,
uneven
no
wear.
bumps.
Rear tires can be a recapped tire.
Oh.
You cannot have one on the front, you can't have on the rear, so you obviously look for rubber separation here between the recap. Air pressure is still 100 psi. as
Recap
checked.
is reused.
Retread.
Recap or retread tire is the tire's been driven,
Mm.
sent back to the factory, and they put another layer of rubber
Oh, okay.
with tread on it.
Just like the ones that are seen on the road. The
When you see that big strip
Yeah.
of rubber on the road, that's when it has come apart.
oh yeah.
Because recaps can do that if they don't bond well, we do not allow that on the front.
Mm.
If that came apart from a front tire, it could lead to a crash.
Mm.
On the rear tires, not as likely for a crash because we got 4 tires back here rather than 2.
Mm.
But they are cheaper because you're not paying for the
Yeah.
entire tire.
Mm. But you just make sure that it's not it's
No
not
cut, no
You don't want to
bulge.
see any separation here,
Any
like
separation,
like
yeah.
like that new layer of
separated.
rubber will be coming loose.
yeah.
If you see any gaps along in this area, like it's coming loose, you want to report that because you don't want to be driving that come apart.
But we cannot see on the other side, the inner tire.
You just have to look best you can on the inner tire. Again, we're not trying to be mechanics here. We're just looking to see best we can
Okay.
that the tread depth is going to be okay. Just looking to the sides, what you can see for overall appearance.
If we use the Lincoln coin, sir, what part?
2/32, so it needs to come down to the top of Lincoln's head.
Top of Lincoln's head.
Yeah.
Okay. The other one was ear, right?
Correct.
Okay, ear and then head.
The rim, again, no cracks, no breaks, no damage, no repairs, like someone's welded it. Lug nuts are still the same, make sure they're in place, they're tight, no rust trails, no cracks are there. We have an axle seal here. It's not the rubber plug we have in the front. It's bolted in place, but you still want to make sure it's in place, no leaks. Still don't want any oil coming out of this.
Okay.
Now, because we have 2 tires, you have valve stem for this tire, the valve stem for the other tire. You look through the hole here and there's valve stem for the other tire. Both tires will still have to be at 100 psi.
Mm.
Because we have 2 tires, we also have to make sure the space between the tires is clear.
Even.
You don't want any debris that wedged up in there that can rub the tire. If it rubs the tire, it could lead to overheating, could lead to a blowout. So you don't want any debris in that space. The mud flap, splash guard.
Splash
It goes by a couple different names. Must be, if you have one, must be securely attached, not cracked or broken, not loose. You don't want it flying off and hit somebody's windshield.
Mm.
This is not on every bus, but if it's on this one, so we'll check. That's the backup light. Not cracked or broken. Most of our buses don't have that, but newer buses I'm sure will. And again, our reflector's intact, our rear clearance light. They're red on the rear, they're amber everywhere else. That's, if you were coming up on this at night especially, see where the red is, you know that's the rear of the bus, so you know which direction the bus is pointing.
Okay. Just to know the direction or position of the bus.
Correct.
Okay.
On the rear of the bus, again, clearance lights at the top. They're red, but they're not cracked, broken, missing. The school bus sign is very clearly identifying the bus. Our passenger warning lights, amber and red, no cracks, no breaks, seem to be the right color.
That's a camera, sir?
That is a backup camera.
Mm.
Some of our buses have a backup camera mounted like that. Don't get used to it, most of our buses don't. Turn signal and emergency hazard lights.
Hazard light,
They're amber, not cracked,
Amber.
broken, or missing, right color.
stop light.
All the red ones, all four of the red ones are tail lights and brake lights.
Brake lights.
Make
Tail
sure
and
they're not
brake
cracked,
lights.
broken, or missing.
Mm.
These are backup lights when you go into reverse. On
Ah,
the newer
okay.
buses, these also will come on when you open the door. Help you see if you're getting in or out of the bus on the rear door. Tag lights
Tag lights.
or license plate lights, mounted securely, not broken. Make sure the license plate is securely attached, don't want it flying off. Reflectors on the rear should not have cracks or breaks. Reflective tape should be on the bumper, attached securely, and nothing in the tailpipe. Since we're back here, we're going to open our emergency door, which is labeled and has reflective tape around it. We open it. When you open it, these lights come on for boarding. Open the door all the way to make sure that hold open device works. You make sure it catches so it's not going to fly back and hit you in the face.
You will know if the back door is open. The lights also open.
On this bus.
Mm.
That's a
this
new
bus.
feature. Most of our buses doesn't do that.
Okay.
But with the door open, we want to make sure this rubber seal around the door is intact.
Mm.
If it's cracked or broken, it might lift fumes inside the back of the bus.
Okay.
Mm.
It does also give us a chance to look in the bus to see if we have any unauthorized riders. We don't want any creatures in here of any configuration. It's not uncommon sometimes to see birds, squirrels, cats, sometimes people. So you look to see if there's anything like that. If you see anything that indicates there may be an unauthorized rider, you want to make some noise, you know, wake them up, whatever. Maybe they'll be gone before you get in the front door. You got more room to run out here than you would once you're in on the bus. And once this is catching to close, then you got to open it all the way to release that, and then it will close.
Mm.
If you look under the bus, in the middle, you see that big metal cage there? That's where the fuel tank is.
Fuel tank?
The fuel tank. You want to make sure it's no damage, no cracks, no leaking fuel.
What's the total capacity of the fuel tank, sir?
100 gallon.
100 gallons. Okay.
But you want them to stay in the tank till you use it, not leak it on the ground.
100 psi for the tires and
100
tank.
gallon fuel
100
tank.
gallons. Okay.
But this is where we check that. Make sure that this cap's always tight.
Okay.
No leaking around here, no leaking on the tank. Yeah, generally speaking, sweating like crazy. Generally speaking, you do not have to fuel the truck. The buses, they will come around and fuel it up during the day. Drivers do not fuel our buses.
Okay.
If you drove an activity bus on a long trip, you may have to, refuel it, but they would give you instructions and probably a credit card to take care of that. 100 gallons of fuel can cost a lot of money. But if you see a little build up here, this is where, when it was fueled, they spilled a little bit. We don't consider that a leak. That's overfill.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon. We don't want to see a leak, especially at a fuel tank down there. On this side, we would check it just like we did on the other side. The tire, suspension, the brakes, just like we do on the other side. This is unique, so we have to, focus on that. All this will be the same. Now, we didn't have a storage container on the other side. If you have a storage container, it must be securely closed. You're not required to check it. I tend to want to.
Oh.
Just because I don't want any surprises. I want to look to make sure there's nothing in it I'm not aware of. Sometimes drivers will put cleaning supplies in here. Sometimes if you're going on a trip with a ball team or something, they may put stuff in here. Just don't want any surprises. But the big thing is, at least for testing, is that this is latched securely. You never drive with a storage container open on a bus.
Yeah.
Again, the signage, reflective tape, and reflectors are all intact. Emergency exit is marked over here. The clearance lights are not cracked, broken, or missing. Signal light, just like on the other side. We get back here, and we have a door. We didn't have a door on the other side. So we have to inspect our entry area. The glass should not be cracked, broken, no unauthorized stickers that would prevent you from seeing out. Hinges should work properly. It opens and closes. The seal should be intact, so that when it closes, you keep the weather out.
By the way, sir, in the video that you have presented to us regarding bus accidents, it showed there that the bus has an external camera to those violators.
Some buses do have that, but not all.
Oh, not all. How about this one, sir? This doesn't have any external camera.
I don't think this one has. Let me see. No, this one does not have the external cameras.
Okay.
We don't have that on all of our buses because of the expense.
Oh, yeah.
But we are seeing more buses with those cameras.
Especially on those buses in the city.
But you'll have cameras inside.
Oh, inside.
But exterior cameras, we add those only when we need them. If we have a route where we have stop sign violations on a regular basis, we're more likely to put a bus there that would have the outside cameras.
Okay.
If you have those extra cameras, there will be 3 cameras on the outside of the bus on that side, and another camera here that would actually view outside.
Yeah, there's a camera over there.
We have one here, but we don't have the outside cameras on this one. But those cameras will look for those who drive by the bus when the stop sign is out. They'll get video of that vehicle coming and going as it passes the bus, and you can use that video to prosecute them. Because that is, besides being very dangerous, it's also very illegal. And if they are convicted, it's a very high fine.
Yeah.
And they would be assessed 5 points on their license for that one violation. Well, those cameras can help, but every bus does not have them.
Okay.
We check the doorway and the seals here. Make sure the steps are clear, no tripping hazard. They should be fastened down, not curling up or broken. Properly labeled. This helps for safety using the handrails, and also the no trespassing sign allows you to make sure no unauthorized people get on the bus.
Okay.
No angry parents or anything storming the bus. You have the boarding light. Make sure it's intact, not cracked or broken. We'll make sure it works too. What's inside? The handrails should be in place and secure. So if you should lean on them, they should support your weight. If you start to fall, they'll support you. Okay. This walk around the bus, we have just visually checked the bus to make sure we see no obvious defects. Nothing's turned on. No air pressure is built up. We've just been looking at the bus for the obvious problems. Now we can get on the bus.
No cracks.
So we get on, and we shall then, once we get on the bus, when you get to the top of the steps, your paper actually calls it a bonus. Turn around toward the door, find the door switch. It should be in the emergency position. that allows us to manually open the door.
Mm.
We want to flip it to normal. Now make sure there's nobody in the door. If there's air pressure, the door may close on them.
Oh.
Now it may not close. If there's no air pressure, it won't move, but you want to make sure the switch is in the right position. Then you can turn to your safety equipment. Usually right above the windshield. Fire extinguisher, securely mounted. Make sure it's charged. The needle is in the green part of the gauge. Still got the tag on it, hasn't been used. Body fluid cleanup kit. This is actually still sealed up, so you know it's fully stocked.
What is that used for, sir?
This is if you have a body fluid like blood, urine, vomit. It protects you so you don't get any bloodborne pathogens or any diseases that can be carried by that. It protects you as well as others from that. First aid kit. Again, this was sealed. Make sure it's stocked. If you use anything out of this, just let the garage know they'll replace it. Our reflective triangles. We've got 3. And if you need them, you can pull them out. These would open up.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Open them up and they
Need to assemble.
They kind of clip and then set it out like that. Then once you're through with it, fold it up again and it goes in the box. So you can always warn others of danger. And there's 3 of them in here. Your instructions normally will say look for spare fuses up here as well, unless you have breakers. We do not carry spare fuses on the bus. They're in the mechanic's truck.
Okay.
If you ever open this, make sure the door is latched. You don't want it flying open while you're driving down the road. Then we would actually then turn to our seat. Make sure the seat's securely attached. The seat belt not cracked or frayed, and the latch will hold it. If you need to adjust the back of the seat, there is a release hinge on this side. You pull it up and you can move the seat. Make sure that's adjusted for you. If you need to move it forward or back, there's a release on the front. So you move the seat forward or back.
Yeah. It's not automatic.
No. And if you need to raise the seat up, once you have air pressure, this orange button would raise it up or down. This gray button with air pressure would inflate a lumbar support in the seat to make it more comfortable for you. The steering wheel, to adjust it, this little pedal under the middle here.
The brake pedal.
No, not the brake pedal, this little pedal up the top here.
Yeah.
You can press that little pedal down and adjust the steering wheel.
Oh!
So you get it
Nice.
where you want it. So get that adjusted, and then we're going to do a startup. Now, do either of you have experience with a diesel?
Not yet.
With a diesel, you have to treat them a little different than a regular vehicle. It's getting warm in me. You don't just jump in it and crank a diesel. Diesel fuel is thicker, so you need the engine or the plugs to be warmed up before you start. So we have to do what we call glow the plugs or warm them up. To do that, we turn the key to run. Don't start yet, just turn it to run. But when we do, we look at our dash.
Okay.
We're going to be looking for all the lights will come on. Hopefully most of them will go off.
Yeah.
2 lights in particular we're going to be looking for. When we turn this key to run, we're going to look up here. We're going to look for our light for our anti-lock brake system, or ABS.
ABS.
We want to make sure that light comes on and goes out.
Yeah.
That will tell us that our anti-lock brake system is working properly. We're also going to look to see if there's a light that tells us to wait to start while it's warming up the engine. So we turn this to run, there's our wait to start light and our ABS light. ABS just went off. Wait to start is now off. Make sure both of those are out before we start the crank.
Low air.
Did you see it?
Yeah.
The wait to start up here and ABS there. So look there, ABS goes out, and then the wait to start goes off. Now we're able to crank it. Before we crank it, make sure this is in neutral. We're going to wiggle it, make sure it's in neutral. Don't just look at it. Make sure it's locked into neutral. Make sure our parking brake is out. I'm going to cover the brake just to make sure if it does move, I can stop it. And then I'm going to crank the bus. Once the bus is idling on its own, I'm going to check my instruments. Oil pressure, make sure it rises immediately. Normally it should be about in the middle of the gauge. If you ever crank it up and it stays way down here, don't let it continue to run, you can damage the engine. It's got to come up immediately. And like I said, normal is about middle of the gauge. Water temperature, that one we hope rises slowly. But when it does rise, again, about middle of the gauge is what we're looking for. 180 to 200 degrees is what we're looking for in that usually. Transmission temperature. Once we start driving, that should rise slowly. Again, we do not want it on the right-hand part of the gauge. This is our engine speed. Right now it's about 1200 RPM, which is normal high idle as it's warming up. Once it's warmed up, that should drop down to about 700. Once we're driving, it may be higher than that. Our speedometer, not really reading anything because we're not moving. When we do start to move, we want to make sure it rises to show our forward speed. Our fuel, we got a fuel tank, so we're not going to run out today. Now, these green box here says DEF. This is the diesel emission fluid. The newer buses have that to help clean up the pollution that comes out of the bus. There's a little tank right by the door there on the outside that you put that fluid in. This just shows whether that tank has fluid in it or not. There's 4 boxes here. As they go down, you're using that fluid. If it gets down to where you have one box, one green box there, I would make sure the garage knows you need to put it in there. If you run out of that, it can damage the engine. If you get down to 1, then that last box will then change color. It'll go to amber and then eventually red if you keep going. If it ever gets to red, you need to stop driving because you can really damage the engine.
The air compressor.
So when should you report, sir? Amber or red?
If I got down to 1 green, I'm going to report it.
Okay.
Don't want to run any risk of damaging the engine.
Okay, 1 green.
2 air pressure gauges, a primary and a secondary. They both must be aired up to operating range,
120.
which is 100 to 125. In that range is what we're looking for. Primary, behind the needle now is marked. There's a P in that emblem there, there's S on this one. Secondary. Primary system will work the rear axle, where you have 4 tires, you have most braking power. The secondary will work the front axle. You'll also pull from those with your auxiliary systems, such as the door, the stop sign, that use air pressure as well. But those are good. They're aired up enough. Our charging system, our charging our batteries. This number says how many volts we're charging, and it should always be between 12 and 15 volts.
12 to 15.
This, our mileage, see, we only got 19,000 miles in this bus. That's low mileage for a bus. So the gauges are all as expected. Right now we have no alarms going off. The one light we have on is our brake. It says our parking brake is on.
Yeah.
It's engaged. So
We
no
have
alarm.
another light, the seat belt light.
Well, I didn't fasten my seatbelt yet. So, but yeah, it's on. I haven't put the seatbelt on. I'm not driving at the moment. Making noise over there. So once it's aired up, all of the alarms are satisfied. I am going to shut my bus off and we check lights. On a school bus, you're not going to get all the lights on unless the key is in the on position.
Okay.
So I'm going to turn it to run. Again, it's going to be able to do this little check. Then I want to get quiet because we've satisfied the air pressure and all the other alarms. Hey, wait, you're too loud. Now, to turn my lights on, I want to turn on all of my operating lights. This is the light switch. On this switch, the middle is off. If you lift it down, it will be only my marker lights. But I want to check headlights too, so I want to flip it up. Headlights should come on. You may or may not be able to see when those mirrors, depending on how bright it is out front. But we're going to walk around in a minute. But headlights, now this lever, if I push it toward the dash, it shows the high beams.
High beam.
See those in the mirror? I can see my high beams come on. And high beam indicator on the dash is on.
Yeah.
I'm also going to find my hazard light indicator up here on the top of the steering column. Push that on. Both lights are flashing on the dash to indicate my hazard lights are on. Should be flashing outside as well.
Okay.
And then I'm going to come over here and see this warning light switch. This is from my passenger warning light system. I'm going to flip this on up to the amber position. That should trigger my amber flashing warning lights on the front. Flip that on. The indicator there comes on. On the front, I can see my amber lights are flashing. Now, when I open the door, with this switch, the door will open. Those lights should change to red. My walk arm out front, the safety arm should come out, and my stop sign should come out over here, just by opening the door.
Oh, yeah.
The door's open, the red lights are on, the safety arm is out, stop sign's out. Since the engine is not running, I'm able to get out, walk around, check the lights. Now, when the door opened, that light in the stairwell came on.
Yeah.
The dome lights came on as well.
Okay.
That way they don't walk into a dark bus. Now we'll exit, we'll go around and check the lights from the outside.
Much more cooler here.
Once we start driving, we'll get the AC going too. Now, as I step out of the bus, I'm going to look at this side. See, I've got a regular marker light here and a signal light.
Okay.
At the top, I should have clearance light in the middle, red clearance light at the back. Hazard light is flashing here. So my side is working properly. Safety arm is in fact out. Headlights.
You said last time and feel if the student.
Well, when we pull it out, we can check it, trying to pull back. But now it's out because we have air pressure on there to pull it out. Both?
I mean, sir, when the student over here.
Well, they're supposed to walk around the edge.
They should be moving around here so that they will not be inside the blind spot, right?
Yeah.
You want them out in front, you can see them directly without the hood blocking them. You can see both headlights on, low and high beam should work here. Our hazard light is working here. Our clearance lights in the middle of the bus should be on. Right now, because the door is open, our red passenger lights are working here. Headlights are here. A hazard light is flashing here. Hazard light and a marker light there. Clearance lights at the top. Amber, amber, and red. Hazard light on the side is flashing there. The stop sign did come out and is flashing top and bottom on both sides. You may notice the bus rose up. It's further off the tire than it was.
Yeah.
We inflated the airbags.
Okay.
So it rises up a little higher. The
Mm.
airbags.
Okay, sir.
On the rear of the bus, clearance lights are lit up in red. Our red passenger lights are on. Our hazard lights are flashing here. Our red tail lights are on. If you step back far enough,
You can see it.
the strobe light up on the roof.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Passenger buses have a strobe light on the roof like that.
It's only at the back, sir.
Only on the back. Now, what lights have we not verified?
The signal light and what do you call it, the white light, sir?
The backup lights are not a required check.
Okay.
But it lit up earlier when we opened the door, right?
But we don't know that it works if you go into reverse. We didn't check that. That's
Ah,
not a
yeah.
required check.
Okay.
And it's a safety issue.
Okay.
They will not go into reverse unless the engine's running.
Mm.
And we don't want someone back here checking that and you run over them.
Yeah, that's true. But we can check that if we're going to open the emergency door, right?
You can check the light fixture, but not the switch circuit.
Oh, okay.
Because the backup is a different switch hooked to the transmission. What else has not been checked?
Mm. I think everything is checked so far. No, not yet.
Nope.
I think the brake light.
We have not checked brake lights.
Ah, yeah.
What else?
How about this one?
That's just a reflector. It doesn't light up.
Ah.
The signal light.
We have not checked turn signals. Hazard lights are working, but we haven't checked the circuits to make sure the signal lights work.
Okay.
That's front and back for that matter. And we have not checked the amber flashing lights up there.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Amber lights will not be on if the door's open.
Oh, okay.
You have to close the door for that. So to check those and brake lights, if you don't have a reflective surface back here, you have to have a helper.
Mm.
Now, when you are testing, I can be your helper,
Mm.
which means I can be back here and you tell me what light you're checking. But to do that, let me show you how we'll do that. Is you'll walk around and check these lights. Except the test. And I hate this. On the test, once you're on the bus, I don't want you to get off.
Mm.
So when you're testing, you get in and check lights. I go outside and check all the lights.
Mm.
I'm just pointing. I'm telling you where they are right now. And then with a helper, you would then cancel the hazard lights and check your turn signals. Left side is flashing on the dash. Should be flashing on the front.
Yeah.
There's a side light that should be flashing, and the rear turn signal should be flashing. So your helper could check that. Then you check the right side, it's flashing on the dash, the front corner, on the side. You might be able to see it in the window, maybe not.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the rear, make sure the right turn signal is flashing. To check the brakes, with the helper in the back, you simply press the brake pedal, make sure the brake lights work, all 4 of them.
Mm.
To check the amber lights, you would have to close the door. That automatically resets all those lights. And then turn the amber lights on again while the helper's back there to make sure that when the amber lights are here, they're on the back. And you need to make sure all those are working for your test. So when you're testing, you get on the bus, you say you're going to do the light check, I will then go out around the bus. You have to tell me what light you're checking though.
Okay.
So you have the window open, you call out what light, I'll tell you if it's working. All around the bus. With the key in run, with the engine not running.
Okay.
If you try to do this while the engine's running, I won't be able to hear you.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's all of the lights.
By the way, sir, what's the purpose of turning on the amber warn lights?
Well, you want to know, those you turn on as you approach a passenger stop.
Oh, okay.
So you want to make sure they work to let traffic know you're slowing down for that purpose. And then once you do stop and open the door, the red lights come on to tell them they need to stop. Don't pass the bus.
Early warning sign.
The amber is the early warning.
Okay,
the red means you better stop.
Yeah. That's why you have to press amber warning lights before you stop.
As you approach the stop, that's correct.
Okay.
So once the lights are done, we get in and we shut the lights off. Once you do all that, and then you want to make sure that you have air pressure built up. Should still be in the operating range.
100.
At least 100. You know, we're going to do our brake check.
Okay.
The LAB brake test, the system test, must be done. All 3 parts of it must be done or you can't pass the skills test.
Mm.
Those 3 parts, L stands for leak. We're going to make sure the system does not have an air leak.
Mm.
The A is for alarm. We're going to make sure our low air pressure alarm works correctly. And then the B is button pop out. That's the indicator of when the emergency brakes would be applied. We're going to make sure that does in fact work. So to test that, air pressure is up, engine is not running, but the key is in run. It won't work any other way. It is a timed test. So you need a timer. You can use a watch, your phone, whatever you want to use, but it is a time test. You must be able to do the leak test for 1 full minute. So with the engine off, the key on, I'm going to press and hold the brake pedal.
Okay.
When I press the pedal, air pressure will drop, but then the needle should settle in and stop movement. When they stop moving, that's when I'll start the time. I'm going to hold that for 1 minute. During the minute, I'm watching the gauges to make sure they do not drop more than 3 psi. I got the window open. I'm listening for any air leak. And don't shortchange this. Some people get in a hurry. They want to, after 15 or 20 seconds, they want to say it's fine. The standard is to go 1 full minute. And if we get to the minute, we did not see a drop.
Oh.
So now I'm going to release the brake, and I'm going to fan the air off, lower the air pressure intentionally until my low air pressure alarm comes on. This alarm should come on when the pressure is, before it dropped below 60. And it did. It's a little above 60, but it's getting close. The alarm come on, I see the warning lights, I see the buzzer. So the alarm stage is done. Now I'm going to continue to fan the air off until that button pops out. Should pop out in the neighborhood of 30 psi, could be as low as 20. It popped out right about 30 psi, right where I expected it. That test verifies that I don't have any leaks in my air brake system. If I do lose air pressure, my low air pressure alarm does work correctly. And if I continue to lose air pressure, emergency brake will then be activated. So that is the LAB test. That all 3 steps must be done on your skill test. But I let the air pressure off. We need to air that back up. So now I'm going to do another start. It is in neutral. Brake button is out. As it builds air pressure up, again, I just cranked it, just a quick glance at my gauges. They're all still where I expect them, but air pressure, we're building that up. While that's happening, though, I can come back, I can check my windshield wipers. Rotate this end knob here. And you are required to check low and high speed. Not the intermittent part, but low and high. And then the windshield washer function. I'm pressing hold the button. See if I can get windshield washer fluid up there so I can clean my windshield. That all seems to work properly. So I can keep my windshield where I can view through it. Starting over here, I'm going to work down to make sure all these work. Defrost fan, it should be this fan here.
Oh.
2 speeds, that work. This fan is designed to move air around up here to keep these windows and doors clear. You will usually find it pointed toward the driver, but it's really here to keep the windows clean. The next one over here is aft, means rear. The element says it's a heater. This is the rear heater under one of the seats back there. You hear it running back there.
Okay.
Because the heater up here will not be enough for them back there, so we add a heater.
That's a heater.
Driver dome right above us here. You have a separate light. On the newer buses, you have that light just for you. The big dome light is for all the rest of them back there. Turn them on. These are warning lights. We'll come back to those in a minute. Active noise switch is one way to get everything quiet at one time when you got heaters and defroster, air conditioner, whatever on. This will get them all at one time. We'll check that in a moment when we get over here. Mirror heat, there are heaters built into all the mirrors to keep them from icing up or fogging up. You turn that on, especially in cold weather. Mirror adjustments here if you need to. Adjust the mirrors.
Okay.
A lot of using having to go outside. And then as we come over here, this is the heater and defroster, fan, where that air is going to be going, and the temperature. This is not air conditioning. This is just heat or no heat. This is air conditioning. Power, fan speed, and temperature. This is the front air conditioner. This is the one on the back. It's over the door in the very back. So we'll now if these are on, and when it's quiet, this one switch here, it all gets quiet at one time.
Wow.
Railroad crossing, that can be very crucial to get it quiet one time. Otherwise, you got to hit all these individual switches. If you get them quiet here, once you handle the railroad crossing, put them right back on. So we'll come back to that in just a moment once we finish the testing. We have got the brake test done, the LAB system test. We've got lights tested. We've got the noise, windshield wipers. Now got 2 more brake checks to do. We're going to make sure they're adjusted and work properly. We're going to be moving the bus, so I want to make sure my seatbelt is on, and any passengers are warned and grip hold, because we don't want to put them in the floor. So you need to either sit down or at least brace yourself. First test I want to do is I want to test my parking brake.
Okay.
Make sure the parking brake will actually hold us. So the parking brake is on, button is out, while on the dash says my parking brake is on. I'm going to shift into drive and attempt to move the bus. I can feel the bus trying to move, but the brake's not holding.
Yeah.
So the parking brake works properly. Now I'm going to release the brake. This time when I release the service brake, the bus should start to roll forward. I'm going to roll forward, not real fast. Then I'm going to apply the brakes to see if my steering wheel pulls to the left or right, make sure it brakes evenly. So this is the only time I would say it was okay not to hang on to the steering wheel, but keep your hands close. Go straight. Just a little bit of speed. Apply the brakes. Make sure the steering wheel is not pulled left or right. That says braking evenly. They're adjusted. They're braking smoothly.
Okay.
Then I'm going to go into reverse. Hear my backup alarm beeping.
Yeah.
Horn works. And the transmission will actually pull me backwards. So if I need to back up, I can.
That's the camera.
And now, is there anything we have not yet inspected?
The seats.
What?
The seats.
We haven't checked the interior.
Oh yeah, the interior.
Again, I'm going to turn the switch on because we can hear a long way. To check the interior, if it's dark, you would also want to turn on the dome light so you can see. If you come in early morning, you might do that because you can't see otherwise.
Yeah.
We are going to go through the bus and check all the seats. We're looking for damage. We're also checking to make sure they are secure. So damaged, they're secure. We don't have any loose or objects left over from somebody all the way back.
What will we do, sir, if there are some students who vandalize or try to damage seats?
Report it.
And then will it be given action immediately?
I wish I could say yes, you're supposed to.
Mm.
But it depends on the school.
Oh, okay.
Some principals will respond quickly to take care of it. Other principals don't,
Yeah.
even though they should.
Mm.
But your job is to report it.
Okay.
Now, as I start to the front, I want to check, make sure the bottom of the seats are fastened in.
Mm.
Now, emergency exits too. When we opened the back door a while ago, we didn't have the key on. With the key on now, we should have an alarm. If that alarm goes off while you're driving, that means somebody opened the door. You need to stop the bus, get on to whoever threw whoever out. Then other emergency exits such as roof hatches. Make sure they work. Again, alarms should go off when you open them up.
Can you try it?
You push upwards now, Brad.
And window.
Mm.
Oh. Window here. So that buzzer will tell you if a emergency exit is open. You do not drive with emergency exit open.
Same alarm.
Now, this bus does not have it, but most of our buses do. The first 2 seats from each side would have a built-in harness for small children.
Yeah.
Just the first 2 on each side. If you have those, just make sure that you know they're intact and working properly. So that would be the interior of the bus. We check the seats, we check the alarm, the dome lights, we got the brake check, lights. You get into an inventory in your own mind. Have you checked everything that needs to on the bus? And if you have, then you would have to determine, is this bus in fact safe to drive?
Yeah.
And at that point, the inspection will be over.
Okay.
Now, when we're testing, a skill test day, I will be waiting for you to tell me the inspection is over.
Okay.
I don't, even if you got everything checked off, I don't assume that it's over until you tell me. I want you to be comfortable with that.
Okay.
I have a question, by the way. We have an inspection kit.
Well, you can't use it for the test. You can't use anything for the test except a diagram. I will make available to you. You are able to refer. I'll have that available to you.
Okay.
There is a copy of that in your CDL manual as well, in section 11. But that's the only thing you're able to use during your test.
Okay.
Now, once you get the test done, you can make up your own key if you want to help after that, but for the test, that's all you can use. Because I'll have that, I'll actually, on the test, I'll be holding that like that toward you. I'm checking all things here that you do it.
Okay.
And when you tell me you are finished with the test, on the inspection part anyway, at that point, I simply count up what you've got and tell you whether you're passed or not. Of course, we're going to hope that you passed. Because on the skill test, you had to pass one test before you move to the next.
Okay.
Okay? So any questions you have right now on the inspection?
We need to study.
Yeah. But now we're going to do some driving.
Okay.
Each of you is going to do I want to walk you through the LAB brake test, though. I want to have you do it every day.
Okay.
Because I want you to know how to do it when we get to the test. So we're going to do that right now before we ever start. So who wants to go first?
Both of you.
Okay.
You're going to volunteer him, right?